Okay, so this season has produced some of the most disappointing teams in NFL history. So let's just get right into this video. Let's look at the most disappointing NFL teams this season, starting right away with the Los Angeles Rams. Oh man. Firstly, taking into account the extra game that the Rams played this season, they will most likely finish the year having the worst record out of any team following a Super Bowl win. And if you can remember all the way back, they did actually win a Super Bowl, so they were going to be prone to a Super Bowl hangover, and this illness definitely hit hard. As directly after claiming the Lombardi, if you can remember, there were heavy rumors that Aaron Donald and Sean McVay were just going to straight up retire, which should at least shed some light onto how stressful a Super Bowl win can actually be. And things just continued to pile on for the Rams as they ended up having an offseason from hell, losing Odell Beckham Jr., Andrew Whitworth, Von Miller, Darius Williams, Sebastian Joseph Day, Austin Corbett, and much more. And the biggest loss out of all of those proved to be Andrew Whitworth, as without him being the cornerstone of their O-line, the rest of their line just completely collapsed. To prove this, the Rams during the season had the most O-line lineups out of any team in the league, and I mean as of right now, they only have one singular O-lineman that played during week 1. And that's just the goddamn glands of the iceberg. But first, we gotta look at how everything went south during the actual season. If you can reach back far enough, you'll probably remember their week 1 game where they just got mauled by the Bills 31-10. And most people just dismiss this as a fluke, saying that they would bounce back because they've got the talent, they've got the experience. But what people seem to forget is that even at full strength, there was an argument to be made that this Rams team couldn't even compete with the top dogs in the NFL. Anyways, after staying afloat through week 6, sitting at 3-3, they had their bye week, and I guess someone casted like a dark curse on them because the injuries came pouring in by the barrel. As of right now, Stafford was injured, Darrell Henderson was cut, Cooper Kupp injured, Allen Robinson injured, almost the whole O-line, and on defense, some guy named Aaron Donald got hurt. And all of this led to a stretch of games where they lost 6 in a row before signing everyone's favorite Cheesecake Factory culprit who dragged his nuts on the Raiders to end their streak. But it was way too late for a late season comeback, and the Rams were already done for the year. And the thing is, their scheme isn't even the problem, as their defense was actually pretty damn good for most of the year, and their offense proved that with talent they can be dominant and even win a Super Bowl. But this year alone, their biggest problem was their inability to run the ball, as they're bottom 4 in total rushing yards in the entire NFL, and bottom 5 in just about every other rushing category there is. Pretty simple, the Rams just completed the classic deal with the football devil, pawning their soul away in exchange for one singular shiny Super Bowl ring. So although they aren't exactly in the Jeff Fisher pit of despair, things aren't looking good in the future, but Rams fans, come on, it had to have been worth it. But other teams can't say the same thing. Well, here we are, Arizona. Before the season began, there were only 2 groups of Cardinals fans. Ones that predicted the team to tread water until D-Hop came back and then catch fire late in the season, and the ones that stayed grounded in reality, knowing full well that this was the one and only fate of this team. But the thing with this team is their problem isn't talent. In fact, you can make the case that defensive coordinator Vance Joseph did a good job not having them at least dead last in the league in every statistic with like Budda Baker, Isaiah Simmons, and JJ Watt when he isn't having a heart attack every other week. And also before the season started, the Cardinals made a pretty solid trade, giving up a few picks for a borderline elite wide receiver in Marquise Brown. You know, a few more solid enough signings here and there, and this Cardinals team looked like they could at least compete for a deep playoff run. Well, immediately the Cardinals got dunked on by Mahomes, then rebounded with a miracle win over the Raiders. There seems to be a theme here, but that didn't matter because it was all downhill from there. So after breaking even through 4 weeks, the floodgates opened completely, as during an 11-week span, the Cardinals went 2-9, including losses to the Rams and, oh, come on, seriously? After observing this Cardinals team, this franchise has so many problems, but one did stick out above the others. One issue that has tormented this team all year long, and that is Cliff Kingsbury. And for the Cardinals, this parasite has been endlessly infusing this franchise with, I guess, the inability to coach. Look, you could also make a very good case that their former GM Steve Keem is also at fault, and he is, but to his credit, there is still talent on this roster, so much so that this team was 7-0 at one point last year. But keyword being last year. Now here we are on the sinking ship that is the Cardinals in 2022, and all season long Cliff Kingsbury's faults have just been too much to overcome for his team. And even worse, the problems with this Cardinals team just run deeper, as by watching the Cardinals, you can see that so often either teams seemingly know exactly what play is being run, or the play just straight fails from the start, resulting in Kyler scrambling out of the pocket to try and salvage something. Now, to be fair to Cliff, when Kyler tried to call his own plays, that somehow went worse, but that's a rabbit hole I'm going to choose to ignore for now. But just like with the Rams, the Cardinals were no stranger to injuries, losing multiple receivers, O-linemen, and key defenders, and the final act in the crucifixion of the Cardinals, Kyler Murray tearing his ACL late in the midst of this lost season. Add on the fact that arguably their best player, DeAndre Hopkins, took one too many Flintstone gummies and missed the first 6 weeks of the season, and yeah, I think people should have seen a rough season coming. I still think the Cardinals are actively radioactive, and a few band-aids aren't going to do anything. The only way to prevent at least a half-decade of mediocrity is a full cleansing from the inside. But come on, we both know that won't happen, and the only way to get rid of their first-team all-driver general manager out of his position was to have him step down himself. And look, now you've even made JJ Watt decide to just cut his losses and ascend to the afterlife. It was a fun run, JJ, and I hope you enjoyed your quick stay at Arizona's welcoming rest home. So please, Arizona, just get a new GM and a coach, and that's a good enough start, I guess. So, if the Cardinals are a radioactive mess, then the Broncos are an immeasurable nuclear experiment gone haywire, cause there is nothing to rescue here. Let's go way back to last year, where the Denver Broncos rightfully believed their team was one great quarterback away from being true Super Bowl contenders. So, they traded away 2 firsts, 2 seconds, a 5th, and their previous first-round tight end in exchange for Mr. Unlimited. Now, it wasn't all bad at the time, as a fair amount of people actually thought that Russell Wilson and the Broncos would be a perfect match. But, like, come on, who in the hell would be that stupid as to think Russell Wilson is one of the best quarterbacks of all time, and he's still in his prime when healthy. And even in a stacked AFC, and AFC West at that, Russell Wilson's talent alone is still enough to get almost any NFL team into the playoffs by himself. Well, unfortunately, people like this dumbass would be wrong. As in week 1, the smoke started brewing right away, as in what was supposed to be Russell Wilson's revenge game against Seattle quickly turned into a catastrophic disaster. Now, this would be a perfect time to mention the Broncos hiring head coach Nathaniel Hackett in the offseason. Simply put, he was just overwhelmed and wasn't ready to be a head coach, as that would be proved by him bringing in another head coach to call the plays. Anyways, that Seattle game was filled with some of the worst quarterback play you'll ever see from Russell Wilson, and towards the end of the game, Hackett had Peyton Manning suffering 8 strokes simultaneously as he burned a massive amount of precious clock because, I don't know, BM or something? Well, this led to the Broncos missing an unnecessarily long kick, and yep, here came the avalanche of losses. For the rest of the season, the Broncos had by far the worst offense in the NFL, while in their worst stretch of games, they went 1-9 in 10 weeks straight. I mean, they're dead last in the league in points per game, below the Colts and Texans, and bottom 5 in every other major offensive statistical category. The funny thing is, they're so bad on offense that their red zone percentages actually look good because they just never get in the red zone. But hey, at least they lead the league in punts, so that's That's something. The Broncos have sold their soul to Russell Wilson in the hopes that he would repay them with the Hall of Fame level play that he's been at for the last decade. Instead, Russ drained away all of his talent, producing what I can only hope to be the worst season of his career. And all I gotta say is we should have seen this coming. One video, one singular clip was the foreshadowing on what this Broncos team would become. It all started with this video.
Broncos country, let's ride. Broncos country, let's ride. Broncos country, let's ride.
You're stuck, Denver. Enjoy purgatory for the next 5 years, I guess. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, then subscribe, because I got a lot of videos on the channel just like this one. And if you like this video, then watch this video right here on the hardest Super Bowl ever won. It's pretty good, trust me. Anyways, until next time.